Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? And today, as promised, I revisited Sunavalon, kind of. And now I splashed in with Rikka Sunavalon. This is basically just like a planned good stuff deck without Therion and kept a bit on the down low. We have optimized combos here. Stuff is a bit cheaper than it could have been before the combos were more convoluted, so you needed to use different cards, different ultra rares. You can already see we have lost some of the Sunavalon stuff, sadly. So if you're more into the whole pure Sunavalon kind of playstyle, then check out my channel. There should still be a video that somewhat incorporates that in a very cheap-ish way. But today it's more about being competitive, being as competitive as possible on a budget with plans. And this is what this deck is trying to achieve. We still obviously run triple Sunseed Genius Loci because this combo in combination with Sowing is absolutely crazy. Well, not absolutely crazy, but I can do like lots of interesting things. I used to be able to do like some near FTK combo basically by itself, but this is not anywhere close. This is more, you end on some stuff, some of your packages, plus the link for not even the Sunavalon on, but the other one. And on the way, you hopefully get to do some stuff if Ash Blossom doesn't annoy this one a little bit. There's obviously stuff where you can interrupt hand traps a little bit because you do have stuff like Rikka Princess, and I think there are combos where you can actually get Princess out and disrupt your opponent's hand traps during it, so you have to kind of know when to disrupt them anyway. Next up, Rikka Petal, level 1 cards, very, very strong. Technically, these two are the main reason why you could actually consider running 1-for-1. You do in the specific version kind of run like plenty of monsters. There's not like that many, but it's still enough to actually use 1-for-1 as a play starter for both sides of the deck. So the card in general is quite good, but obviously budget and you don't really have to incorporate it, so it doesn't really matter all that much that you don't have it. This card just starts your normal Rikka plays, very nice. Can search it off the other combos as well, so there's that one. And obviously Lonefire Blossom searches either those, whichever one you want to use. Unless you get ashed, then you're doing nothing. We run a double Sunseed Twins, basically because, well, first of all, they're twins, of course, and secondly, we do fear the whole of bricking, so the optimal ratio is obviously 1 because you only want to be summoning it off of Sunvine Sowing, but sometimes the optimal thing means you want to have as much fun with the deck as possible, and breaking is no fun. So I felt like in a budget deck especially, 2 is better than 1. But yeah, in the end, you can decide how you want to handle these kind of ratios, because this is mainly, yeah, do I want to break or do I not want to break in certain situations. Lonefire Blossom at 2 technically can play it at 3, but I felt like 2 was actually like a fine ratio because you don't want to have too many normal summonable monsters, and there's not really a way to special it from hand other than Snowdrop. So if you actually start with like multiple Lonefires, that effectively does nothing, and you have other cards that do more than this, so I felt like 2 was actually fine. We want Ash Blossom because you basically get it for free, and going second, hand traps sadly have to be at least somewhere in here, so this one does the most against most decks, so definitely in here because you get it from the master packs as usual. 1 Rose Girl. I did not want to drop this card because in the pure Rikka version, this card has actually done some stuff for me, like literally some stuff, and also there's not that many extra deck cards that you can run in the budget builds that are semi-decent once you've actually used all the cards for the main combos, and that's why especially this card is not too bad. It can help you in certain situations. It can revive stuff from the graveyard, so this can actually be super helpful from time to time. Plus this card comes back and comes back and comes back, so it actually can be nice because you have a lot of stuff that actually needs to be tributed, and this can act as an extender if you really are short on certain plays and you only have like Sunvine Sowing as a play starter, not as an extender of the Surge. Then if you have this card in hand, this can help you do some other stuff. You might have noticed we did drop the whole Aromage Laurel plus double Aromaseraphy Jasmine kind of combo. There's a reason for it. It was a bit convoluted and it made the deck unnecessarily expensive, and now like with this one, I feel like the end board is well, more consistent, and it costs round about the exact same. So I felt like having 2 of Aromaseraphy Jasmine in here. If you don't have to, then yeah. You don't really need the whole Laurel gain extra life and then trigger the second search of Aromaseraphy Jasmine either. We run double Primula, kind of for the same reasons as this one, but Primula actually does some more stuff. You can always normal summon this card if you happen to have the Rikka field spell as well, and then go off of stuff. So this card isn't terrible, but you could also cut it down by 1, especially since we only play 1 Rikka Queen Strenna. Usually try to play 2, and you usually also have that rank 8 plant monster that's quite good during your turn. So there's that. If you want to be cutting one of them, if you have other cards you want to be putting into this deck, then Primula is one card you can cut down to 1 if you like. This card, very important at 3. It is so much, really so much. It can be a play starter if you actually start with the field spell, because the field spell can search your Rikka Glamour, and Rikka Glamour then can search your Petal, which is quite fun, and actually Sunseed Genius Loci, because they're both level 1. So that is lots of fun, because you can add 1 plant monster with the same original monster as that level as that Rikka monster. So that's very, very nice actually. And then you haven't normal summoned yet, so you can still go into either Petal or into Loci, for example, just one of the things that you can use for. You can obviously special summon this, then use the whole Mudan kind of combo, and so on and so on. There's so much you can do with this card. Specifically, it's a monster negate. Very, very, very nice. Mudan the Rikka Fairy, could run it at 2 if you want to. If you want to bump it up, maybe cut this to 1, maybe cut this out of the deck and run this card at 2. Does a lot of stuff. It's not as important as it is in the pure Rikka version, but it's still good at 2. So you can keep going if your opponent disrupts you, and then you don't have to have some kind of revive by plant monster effect anymore. You can just like search another one from your deck and use the combo again. One card that probably most people wouldn't be running, but I noticed there are certain situations where you can't beat over some of your opponent's monsters and they cannot be targeted and stuff, and it's very hard. Usually you get rid of them by using your Rikka stuff, like tribute them, but sometimes you kind of have to get over stuff where you kind of lack certain damage for certain situations, or if your field spell isn't up, then this card is searchable in combination with this one, because they're both level 6, so that's quite fine. So you can actually search them both by Rikka Glamour, so you have, like, if you want to search Mudan anyway, you can also search this one if you want to tribute stuff, so that can be helpful. And this card isn't too bad with the Rikka Queen. That's rank 6, but we don't intend to use this one, but sometimes you run out of playable stuff because you play the budget variant, and then this card can actually be quite helpful, being able to summon itself back from the graveyard, and it's 2,400 attack points, so it's not too bad. 1 Snowdrop, basically to go into either the rank 8 or in general to get stuff out of your hand, because this extends your combos a bit. So I kind of like this card. We don't have a second level 8 though, so we can only search this card if we don't tribute, which is sometimes annoying, sometimes good. Unexpected Dai, very, very important, because it starts your normal Sun Avalon plays, which is good. Rikka Glamour, very, very important. Already talked about the whole combo with Princess. So if you draw into Glamour and Princess, this also still works. You obviously don't need the field spell for that, but there's so many options, so you can actually get these searches off and start your Sun Avalon plays as well. And also this card's just in general a very good search card. Considering the budget variant, this card at 2 is fine. And in budget variants, I try to keep it in a way of, like, I know 2-offs are usually bad, but hear me out, it's meant to keep the deck as consistent as possible, because obviously you brick on every card that you draw 2-offs, but it's a hard once per turn because you can't use it. So if we already don't have lots of the power cards that other decks would have, we try to shave off stuff somewhere else and make our starting hand as good as possible. Sometimes you lack a bit of consistency for this because you won't draw any of them, but we try to replace it with cards that roundabout do the same. It's hard to do, but you get the gist behind of it. Double Sunvine Sowing, mainly you can cut it down to 1. Sometimes this card can be good, can be an Ash Blossom bait as well. It's not very good if you actually just activate it without using it with the combo first, because this card, like, it actually gets you out 2 monsters then, and so on and so on and so on. So it can be quite hard. Sometimes you actually draw like one of your normal summoned monsters and Sowing, and then you can still trigger the effect of you getting damage, which is okay. and then you can get your Sunseed out and kind of start from there. The problem is then you can't trigger this effect, but it still does stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it still does certain things, and it's not terrible. A card to discuss will be coming up next. This one, obviously, no-brainer, very good card, and you get it for free. Check out the solo missions. This card is a free pickup, and you should definitely do so. Sunvine Shrine is, yeah, I know, nobody plays this card, but I try to still incorporate the spirit of Sunavalon in this deck, and this deck has two niche-ish kind of usages. First of all, if you already start with one of the two, since you do play two in this variant, well, at least in my one, there is a chance that you already start with one of them, and then you have at least another card to search off of the Dryas effect, so this can be quite nice. You will have cards in your hand that you can't use because you've already done stuff, and yeah, sometimes you just need certain stuff in the graveyard. You run stuff like Rose Girl as well, and technically also if you draw into Rivalry, you can send it to the graveyard. It's not as good, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a second, because first of all, this card is a reoccurring revival, which can be very, very helpful, especially considering that some of the Rikka effects actually need to tribute plant monsters, and if your field spell isn't up, then this can be problematic. So this does give you at least a blocker each turn as well, and it has one very niche effect that is originally designed probably for the Sunavalon trap card, so you can reset this one, but once per turn during your opponent's end phase, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, then target one continuous trap in your graveyard, set it to your spell trap zone. And this is what I really liked about this one, especially in a budget way. We have a way to get Rivalry of Warlords back if your opponent didn't banish it but just destroyed it, which can happen very easily. So this is actually a way of getting this card back. The downside of this card is obviously the discard, and you have to activate it while you control a Sunavalon Link monster, but you can easily go into this one. You run multiple copies of this one, and it works with any level 4 or lower plant monster, so this is not too much of an issue. I understand if you want to cut this, 1-for-1 would be like a very good target instead of this, for example, but give it a try. You might like it, and it incorporates this spirit of Sunavalon at least a little bit better, but I understand if you do not want to do that as well. I just felt like mentioning it, and I had quite some fun actually playing it, and once this Rivalry combo comes up, it's actually very, very funny. Forbidden Chalice, very, very strong card, budget-wise. This is hand trap slot territorial now, but territory, but yeah. We do want to run good cards, and this one is good going second, good going first, and cheap. Infinite Impermanence, basically same as Ash Blossom. One Tranquility, don't have to run it. You could run double Sheet as well. I felt like mixing it up can be nice. This card is good for chump blocking. This card is good bringing certain cards back, like Snowdrop if you want to be doing stuff. It can also bring Lonefire Blossom back, because the second one, it has to be a plant monster. Sadly in defense position, so you can't bring back link monsters, but it is what it is. It can be helpful, especially considering we run triple Pollinosis, and getting rid of one of your opponent's monsters and getting 2 monsters for that on board isn't terrible, but understand if you rather want to go for like get one of your opponent's monsters and then tribute that one. That's why Pollinosis works very well. And since spell cards are very annoying for decks that play a lot of back row and stuff, we do not have anything that deals with this a lot, I felt like triple Pollinosis is fine. If you feel like 3 is too much and you don't really want to open with 2, same thing as like certain other cards, then you could cut this also down to 2 and play like one other strong card, some other hand traps, whatnots. But I feel like this card actually helped me out of multiple pinches. Lightning Storms are annoying. In general, there's so many power spells in the game at the moment that this card can actually be very, very strong. And one Rivalry, surprise, surprise, you only run plant monsters. This card does nothing to your deck, but does a lot to your opponent's decks, especially right now, because they're basically, lots of the meta decks are all over the place when it comes to typings, and this card somewhat deals with that in a very annoying fashion for your opponent. Not very skillful, but you know, it's a budget deck, and first time I think incorporate a floodgate like this. For the extra deck, Queen of Thorns, not very important. This one does certain stuff. Strenna, very, very nice. Combos very well with the whole princess thing, and searching them off of Glamour, so that's nice. Then this card can special summon either Teardrop or Sacred Tree Beast. Usually you want to run the other rank 8 that does stuff during your turn, but I think it's the Sylvan one, but we do not have the Ultra Rare for that one. Rank 6 sometimes does stuff, not great, but it sometimes does stuff. Teardrop, very nice. You have ways of making it yourself, or you have ways of summoning off of Strenna, so that can be very neat. This one can be any kind of negate in theory. It will mainly be a monster negate, but technically sometimes it might be a spell negate actually as well. Sunavalon Dryas at 3 because you do need it for certain things, and you will see it does come up sometimes. Not so much the effect where you can special summon a monster, but that can come up, especially if you do the reoccurring thing. Then summon this out, and then if your opponent attacks, you get damage, and then you can summon one healer, and then you heal yourself, and then have another monster on board. You could also play one Guardian or Gardener, whatever it's called, if you want to as well. You don't have to play triple healer. The times of spamming healers to get your Aromaseraphy Jasmine procs off are kind of over. We do not run Thrasher because Thrasher's effect sadly is a bit annoying because it's sadly... Well, if you special summon, you can target one Sunavalon Link monster on the field, and this card gains attack equal to this Link monster's rating. And the only high one that we have is Melias, and look at the arrows. You cannot actually summon them together, really. So, bit annoying, actually, especially considering this combo was meant to go into this one. And this one is not a Sunavalon one, so the Thrasher actually works better if you run it in combination with this. So, a bit tough, but it's not the pure version, so we will get over it. Aromaseraphy Jasmine, very nice. Only needed at 1, but you kind of would want to play it at 2 if you could. This one basically only in here because you can easily make it after the Jasmine combo, then summon your Loci back, Loci, whatever back, and then go into this one because this one is a very strong card. It's a spin, and technically you can actually get it back somehow. Yeah, it's okay. It's like not a bad card, and you can really annoy your opponent with this one in specific. And on to the replay. We are starting out with this starting hand. We are going second. Usually it's going first turns, especially with this, but since the combos are a bit more simplified and there's plenty of combo tutorials for Rikka Sunavalon decks on YouTube, I actually felt like showing off more of the actual gameplay, the decision making that this deck specifically involves would suit, benefit you a bit more than just seeing the same old combos again and again and again. So I decided to go second video actually, and show that this deck isn't actually super terrible going second either. We're just skipping through all of their combos, fast mode, because we do not want to see Zodiac basically ranking up and ranking up and ranking up again. They can't go into Zeus because it's first turn, but they do still have Trident here. We have 1 set card and 3 card in hands. Thing is, if you ever played against a pure Zodiac, which it seems to be, I mean, we don't know yet, but it does seem to be pure Zodiac, then you will see that at least 2 of those cards probably are going to be hand jabs, and this is kind of what you have to keep in mind. Obviously, you don't want them to get their Trident off, and you do have 1 Forbidden Chalice, and they do only have 1 monster that actually does stuff, and they do only have 1 monster in general. So what we're going to do, obviously, well, first we're going to draw a card, and then first we will chalice this one, so it does nothing. Anti-attack value is decreased because of its effect, which can be of importance at least a little bit. Then we obviously start with Unexpected Dai to speed up Ash Blossoms here, because we already do have Loci in hand, so it doesn't really matter overly if this card gets Ash, depending on what they have as a set card anyway. So we summon out this one. Then we obviously go into our Link play. The thing is, and that's something that's somewhat important in this deck, the effect of Sunavalon Dryas is not a hard once per turn. So even if this gets ashed, there are ways in combination with the Rikka plays, because you can tribute monsters off of your side, so you can actually clear your extra monster zone, where you have moments so you can get this card out again and then use the whole combo again if they negate it the first time. So it's not actually too tragic if they now ash this one. We would have other ways of doing this, especially because we special summoned Loci, so we can actually normal summon Sunseed Twin, which then would hamper the combo a bit later on. But we also did draw into Sunvine Shrine. I know lots of people do not play this card, but this card is actually somewhat neat in situations, and especially in situations like this one. We'll see what happens from now on. We try to activate the card. There's an effect failure, basically kind of the same as an Ash Blossom when it comes to this one. So we will not be getting that surge, sadly, but it is what it is. Kind of thought something like this was going to happen. Then we go for the next thing, which technically we could now go for the normal summon, but since I felt like they might still have some stuff, I wanted to be on the more secure side and actually use this effect. We have so many Rikka in hand that it doesn't really matter if we discard one, so we discard one to try and summon one back then, and there is the Ghost Ogre, which I did not expect, but there we go. I fetched another hand trap from theirs. Not sure if that's worth it or not, but I guess it keeps us off of monsters in that kind of sense, so might have been a good choice. Not 100% sure. Ghost Ogre can be quite nice for the Rikka package. By this point, they don't technically know that we're playing Sunavalon Rikka. We could just be playing pure, and then I guess if you have stopped this and have stopped us from going into other stuff, that would be fine. Maybe they still have more stuff here, so they're quite secure. They're quite confident that they can end our turn with this one as well. What we do now is we actually, because we have 2 of this in deck, we actually normal summon this one and start our plays like this. We lack, we miss out on certain stuff, but at this point I wasn't having much hope that the whole combo goes off anyway. We can use this again. There's still like a way to do so, but I kind of tried from now on to just basically get to my Rikka package and then outgrind them, because we're somewhat already in a simplified game state. It didn't take long, but that's what control hand trappy kind of decks do. So we try to go into Aromaseraphy Jasmine. I theoretically thought about maybe possibly crashing my Dryas and then going into another Dryas, which could have been working, but then we didn't have to use Aromaseraphy Jasmine, so we could still have her in the extra deck, because we in the budget variant only run one of her, so that can be problematic from time to time. So you did not have to waste it, but in the end it would come out kind of the same in terms of card advantage. And like this, we at least have an 1800 attack point beat stick that stays on board if the opponent keeps on drawing hand traps and doesn't put much up. If they start going into Zeus, if they draw another Zodiac next turn, then we would be a bit more screwed anyway. Although this deck has some recovery, it's not too terrifying a lot of the time, depending on what your next draws are. So I'm trying here to actually get the combo off with Jasmine. There would have been, like, you could have argued, oh yeah, let's just attack into this one first and then see what happens. And I was somewhat confident that this is either an impermanence, so it doesn't really matter when I use the effect, or yeah, nothing that really did anything here anyway. It was a Forbidden Droplet, worse for me, kind of worse for me than an impermanence, because it also decreases my attack value, so I get in less damage. Not that it really matters, but they sacked off their Trident, which made me either think the card in hand is still another hand trap that they don't want to get rid of, or is another, well, spell card or whatnot. Not that I really could respond to it anyway, but yeah. That is how we end our turn, sadly. Not much we can do here. If they now start Zodiac combos again, or like Tri-Brigade stuff, then we would be kind of screwed. But we already, like, I don't want to say we played through 4 disruptions, but we somewhat dealt with at least like 2 or 3 disruptions. So the deck is versatile in a sense, but we also had like quite a decent starting hand, I would say. They did not draw Zodiac starter, so this is basically simplified game state the game. We got one Princess. I decided to actually special summon it because I don't have any way of utilizing the effect anyway, because I don't have a Rikka on board. This would be quite nice if this was a Rikka card as well for some reason, because then hand traps wouldn't matter, because as soon as attributed, this hits the graveyard, and then the effect would definitely go off because I could block it with Rikka Princess, but you have to control a Rikka monster to actually use this effect. So some restrictions on this, otherwise very, very good card. So we try and again, starting our Rikka engine. Let's see what happens. Ash Blossom, we can't do anything about it. Must have drawn that just there, because otherwise they probably would have used it on different effects beforehand. And we go in for 1,800 attack points again. This is going to continue for a while, I would assume. So we basically just hope again. Do they draw a combo piece? Do they draw a 1-card starter? No, they do not. We would still be able to recover somewhat from it, but yeah. Then our draw is also not incredible, because this card does very little, but it does something. We can get our Loci back if we get rid of this card in hand. We will normal summon it now and try to do the whole combo thing again, but there's a way of getting this back from the graveyard later on, which is Tranquility. And since we still haven't used the whole Sowing combo with this card and searching it, and we still have another of our Sunseed Twins in our deck actually, we can still do it again, and we still have access to the link for them, so that is something to consider as well. We're trying out the combo again. Nothing they do this time, but this time we're fine. We're searching. We are going for Mudan. technically, there's probably other ways you could have done this, but I feel like Mudan is definitely the best choice here because it searches the field spell, and the field spell then can search Glamour, can search Sheet, and from that point onwards, you have quite a lot to do. Glamour is, I think, best to search here because you then can go into the Rikka that can technically even put your Aromaseraphy Jasmine back into the deck, and you have like 2 monster negates then, so that is actually not too bad. Then they draw a lock, and I did not want to get locked out of here because we do want to search some more, and yeah, that's why I then fire the negate. I tribute off my Aromaseraphy, so I do get this out of the extra monster zone. Technically, you could argue you should have kept it and kept on going with the effect. If your opponent can't clear it, then that's a resource gain at least every turn, especially since now Rikka Petal is on board. You could have attributed Rikka Petal, but if I wanted to go into Mudan, I would have attributed both anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Obviously, choices here. How do you want to play it? Do you want to play it slow, or do you want to get stuff on board? Because I was scared that they actually do draw into their play starters, and being able to get rid of the one normal summon that they have with some of the Rikka stuff felt better to me, especially since I have Tranquility and I could have done it. And that was my decision making, but obviously you can play that in multiple different ways, and you don't know which one is correct till you actually know what your opponent does. So we're attempting to search here, we're getting the field spell, great, activating the field spell and trying to get Glamour here, but another Ghost Ogre, which I did not really see coming. It was always an option, a possibility, but in the end, nothing that I was too prepared for, but it's still fine. We still get in some damage, and we have Rikka Tranquility, which you have to watch out. Obviously, you do need a Rikka monster in your graveyard to activate this effect. So you can't just be like, oh yeah, but I have a Rikka monster on board, I'll distribute it and then summon it back. That's not quite how it works. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind at least. We will see what they do. We don't have a disruption, but we have a way to survive at least. They probably drew into a hand trap or something like that again. You can see the deck is basically a Sky Striker in, I guess, less consistent, so they didn't do much. But I knew Rikka Petal was going to come back, so would have access to certain plays at least, and that is what matters. Sadly, not have a second Mudan in deck, but we have other ways of going into our Rikka plays. At that point, we draw a card, we draw another Petal, didn't really matter that much. I am trying to bait out an Hash Blossom here by searching Princess, and now we have protection from hand traps, so not too bad either. But with summoning Petal, we did lose access to Rikka Tranquility, so we have to, well, find a little workaround at this point. So we have to go into the Link monster, so we have another Rikka monster in graveyard, then tribute Dryas, which then actually gets us our Loci back, and I decided to go for Petal because that's the only one I had in graveyard, and then we summon the Searcher, so we can actually do the Link 4 combo now that Sunavalon has. And here I do make a grave mistake. Be sure to not do this when you're playing this deck. Never summon Sunseed Twin into the zone of Sunavalon Dryas, because then you don't get the effect of Dryas, and then you lose out on 600 attack points, a heal, and another body on board, which would make somewhat of a difference here, because now we get 1000 damage, and that would have triggered Dryas. So yeah, do not summon this card into the only free extra monster zone, unless you have other ones. So we get Loci back. From here we go into Melias, I think, so we can go into the whole Link 4 combo. This is what you can do like going first as well. This is the simplified plays now that you can do with Sunavalon. We get Loci back, and we go into the Benghalancer, if I'm not mistaken. That's the only Link 4 that we actually run, and it would make sense. Now we have a bit of an issue here, because you can see we only had 3,500. Technically, even if we would have gotten Sunvine Healer out, we would not have enough attack points to finish the game, because both of these also have 0 attack, and we do not run any other Link monster in this specific budget variant. If I had another Jasmine, for example, then this would make a lot more sense, because then you would have enough damage by just linking them off. Sadly, we cannot do this, so we wouldn't be able to finish the game, but if they normal summoned anything, we would have a Barons, and we would still have one monster negate as well, so we would technically be fine, and they know this, and then they surrender. This is basically what the deck does. The combo you just saw going into the Link 4 is usually what you want to be doing. Go first. You're trying to then, well, keep out grinding your opponent a little bit, which In the budget variant is a bit harder because obviously you lack certain resources, at least you lack 2 offs a lot of the time, so there's that. But you can see what the deck can do. Sometimes obviously it was a bit lucky that they didn't draw into their play starter. Not sure how it would have turned out if the deck if Duel kept continuing. They would have out-resourced me eventually because I assume they run a better extra deck than I do. But that's what the deck can do. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a nice day.